Everyone handles trials and challenges differently, but how you deal with what life gives you can make all the difference in the end. Tonight, an inspiring story about a man and how he overcame incredible odds just to enjoy the simple things in life.
Steve Hawks is one of my very, very best friends. He is someone you can always trust. You can always count on him to say what's on his mind, and I love that. I remember Steve got a nickname of Cookie, and I won't go into details about how he got that name, but should you ever need to know, you should ask him, because he might tell you the truth and he might not, but it's a pretty good story.
One day I was at a grocery store and I stole a box of cookies. They were those graham cracker cookies with chocolate all around them. I loved those especially. And the store owner caught me. And instead of calling the police, what he did is he called all my friends over and then he told them. And my punishment was that he says, you are to call him Cookie the rest of his life. That's how I got the nickname of Cookie.
He had muscles that would never quit, and he also grew taller, and he grew much better looking. Not that he wasn't good looking when he was younger, but he just kept getting cuter and cuter, and his personality was always so fun that you couldn't help but love him, and everybody loved him. He didn't play favorites with anybody. He's always been kind to everyone, and he's always been kind to people that other people wouldn't befriend, and that's another thing to love about him. When he was a sophomore, he was a standout wrestler, but he was also a standout football player. So when he became a junior, as he got older, he just got better and better. Became a state wrestling champion. He became a state football champion.
When we went to state, I was seeded number 3, and I thought I should be seeded number 1. So I pinned all of them in the second round, except for the number 1 seed. I pinned him in the first round just to let him know who was boss. And I went ahead and won state that year as a sophomore. And wrestling became my forte, and I quite enjoyed it. I got a lot of recognition, and a lot of colleges and universities sent me letters saying that when I graduated, they would be interested in having me come wrestle for them.
Cookie seemed to have everything going for him. State wrestling and football championships, girls, muscles, and even whatever pick of university he wanted to attend. The opportunities seemed endless, and his contagious love of life would make anything possible. Perhaps he might play for the NFL, or even become an Olympic wrestler. No matter what the future held, Cookie's unrelenting ambition proved that his dreams of becoming a professional athlete were within very short grasp. One bleak day in mid-March would change all that.
Seems like even the first week after Steve's accident, it was like not only his school, his friends, his family, but the whole community stood behind him because he had made an impact on a lot of people.
A few of us, before track started, we had just finished PE in the end of the day, and before track started, a few of us were just goofing off around the high jump pit, and we would line up in a line, and 3 of us all at once would run towards the high jump bar, and we'd do a somersault over top the high jump bar at the same time. We were imitating the dolphins at SeaWorld. I lined up first, and then just as they were getting ready, I ran and I did a somersault over top the bar and came down straight on top of my head. Felt like somebody, like a professional boxer, slugged me in the top of the head as hard as they could, and then I just had a tingling feeling go through my body about this fast. Just like if you were to hit your crazy bone, except it was tingling about 10 times that more intense. And then I just laid on the mat and I couldn't move and I couldn't yell. And then I realized I couldn't even breathe, and I realized something serious had happened. I didn't know what it was. And the next thing I remember is everybody coming over, and they called the ambulance, and the hospital people came over and put me gently on a stretcher and took me to the hospital in St. Anthony. And my doctors immediately called the Salt Lake, and I was within 2 hours put in an ambulance and driven to Salt Lake.
The first thing I remember doing is that we made cookie jars and accepted donations for his family because he was in very, very critical condition in Salt Lake. And I remember getting these cookie jars and setting them all over in the town, in the businesses, and we even brought some to Rexburg, but mostly they were just in St. Anthony. And there were times when especially a couple of the busiest spots in St. Anthony would call and say, you need to come and get this money, or we've already emptied it, you know, what do you want us to do with it? Because people were overwhelmingly generous because they loved Steve and they loved his family.
What had happened is I had shattered my 5th and 6th cervical vertebrae, just like as if you got a glass bottle and dropped it off a roof and the bottle would shatter into a whole bunch of pieces. I was completely paralyzed from the neck down and didn't have any feeling. I was able to breathe just as air would go in and out. That's the only way I could breathe. And to be able to talk or say a word, I had to wait till the air was in, and then as it was going out, I could barely whisper. And the doctors took one look at me and told my mother, your son's going to be like this the rest of his life. At the best, we can probably get him in a wheelchair. He'll be able to think and be okay, but he won't be able to ever move again.
I remember praying with all my heart when that happened, that Steve would live and would be safe and would be able to accomplish the things he wanted to. And I remember just fasting and praying so hard, and after that was over, just feeling a really calm spirit, that I knew that I didn't know how well he was going to be, but I knew he was going to be better than he was then. The next thing we did was organize a whole group of people to go down and visit him as soon as he could have visitors. And the first thing that we saw when we walked in there was Steve had his head shaved, and he had screws all over on his head with a halo above, some contraption coming out of his head to take the pressure off of his neck.
And my friends would come in and to visit or talk and see me. And it was kind of a ghastly sight to see somebody with metal protruding from their head. And I wasn't looking anything like I used to look. They'd have to leave because they couldn't get used to it. And then after they gained their composure, they could come back in and talk with me and visit with me. All my friends or my aunts or uncles or whoever came to visit me, that was a normal routine.
And I remember us laying on the hospital floor and looking up at him, and his face was in this hole in this board. And I remember him threatening to spit on us. and my really big fear was that he really would.
I just basically lay motionless for a few weeks. Of course, rigor mortis set in. I didn't have any physical therapy, and I still had it in my head that nothing serious had happened. It was about 6 weeks later, my father actually told me that you're going to be like this the rest of your life, son. My mother had called the church office building and asked for somebody to come over and give me a priesthood blessing. And so Elder Boyd K. Packer was sent over, and he came over with a young bishop from BYU, and they gave me a priesthood blessing. And I don't remember, I was under so many drugs that I don't remember of what they said. But I remember him coming in, and I remember him placing his hands on my head, and the feeling I had. And I do remember the feeling that I had was, it'll be all right, don't worry about it. And so I never did. I probably cried a little bit, and after that it was all over with, and I faced life ever since just fine.
Towards the end of things, they had us just sit at the end of this long hall in the hospital, and we were just sitting there on this bench at the end of this hall, and here came Steve around the corner, and he was walking, and I'll never forget the amazing feeling that we all had, that we knew he was going to be okay. And we also knew he would never be what he had been, but I am sure to this day that it was nothing but that fighting, positive spirit of his that kept him going, because he was determined to walk again. He's an amazing person who's touched a lot of lives. Then I remember when he married Carolyn, and she's a special, special person, and Steve's very, very blessed to have her. And I think she's also part of the reason that he was able to keep going.
Every time I take a step, even though it's a real ugly looking step, and I trip, and sometimes I fall down, and I can always get back up, and I have bloody knuckles and this and that. It is a constant reminder to me how much the Lord loves me. If I hadn't had that constant reminder, I wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't be thinking of the Lord as often as I do now.
Through tormenting and excruciating physical therapy and numerous surgeries, Steve Hawks did learn to walk and use his hands again. With the help of family and friends, he recovered beyond that which anybody could have imagined possible, and more. Since his ill-fated accident 42 years ago, Steve has married, raised 2 children, obtained a bachelor and master degree from BYU, and has even climbed Table Rock Mountain. After retiring as a school counselor after more than 20 years, he now keeps busy by serving in the Rexburg Temple twice a week, and also serves in the campus stake presidency as well. When he's not serving the Lord, he's always serving others. That and tending to his raspberry bushes or baking lots of bread. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that what lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us. It seems that Cookie turned out to be just the right kind of cookie.